This is Beyond the Resume, the podcast that brings you the stories, advice, and insights behind some of the most successful people in real estate. Beyond the Resume is brought to you by Jackson Lucas Executive Search, the industry leader in human capital solutions. Here is Chris Papa and Lisa Flicker.
Brian Fishback, welcome back. Not back. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Good to see you, Lisa.
Good to see you, Christopher.
Gang's all here. So, Brian, you're a director at Redstone Equity Partners in their alternative investments division. We were talking about this earlier, but can you describe to the firm, the millions of people listening about Redstone, if they don't know already, and what your role is there?
Yeah, sure. I will start with Redstone to all the millions of people listening that may not know about us. But Redstone, kind of first and foremost, is a LIHTC syndicator. So we focus in the capital A affordable space. You know, we raise institutional capital, banks, insurance companies for the most part, and are an investment manager for them, and we deploy it into fund formats where we kind of invest in properties that generate low-income housing tax credits, right, for restricting rents at or below kind of 80% AMI. And we've been around since 07, 08, something like that. I think we've raised and deployed around 11, 12 billion across the country, in 48 states. And currently have around 70,000 or so units in our portfolio. That's the high level of Redstone. And then you asked about alternative investments. It is basically a catch-all for anything that is not what I just described. So, we work with a lot of investor and development partners on the ground, and so we're always kind of looking for ways that we can address the needs of those groups. And so my role is really to help solve some of those. And our focus at the moment is what I'll call preservation housing. And that's, it kind of happened rather organically through a bunch of conversations with our existing partners, both on the investor and development side. But, I think we saw capital market situations where you had kind of higher costs, higher interest rates, resulting in less units getting built. At the same time, from the LIHTC side, saw a huge growth in state tax credits across states. And so what happened is all the 4% kind of tax-exempt bond volume cap was oversubscribed in places that historically that was not the case. And so we'd be talking with our developer partners like, hey, I've got a great deal. I can't get tax credits. Can we figure something out? And then simultaneously, honestly, there was kind of this surge in demand where for rental housing specifically, the high cost to own a home has created a barrier to entry for younger generations, for sure. And you have kind of an older generation transitioning into either downsizing or getting out of their single family and into multifamilies. You also had this kind of surge of demand happening as well. And so we have kind of, coalesced around trying to find a private market solution for either expiring LIHTC deals that were kind of already built, kind of coming at the end of their compliance or extended use period, or looking at naturally occurring affordable housing, which, is a kind of a broad definition, but, looking at those opportunities as a way to retain affordability without having to spend federal dollars to build new units, so that we can use the LIHTC resource for that purpose and we can have a private market solution for kind of retaining affordability.
So like 15 years ago, somebody built this property, tax credits are running off, right? And then you probably have a relationship with these developer of that, and you kind of say, hey, let's figure out a way to keep this affordable.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I mean, after 15 years, there's some capital needs there probably, right? I mean, the roofs are probably fine, but some of the building systems are going to need some work. Some of the units probably need upgraded. I mean, think of if you owned your house for 15 years, you're probably doing something to it. And, so there are some capital needs at the projects. And oftentimes our development partners, they hold these forever, right? They they're not in the business, and rightfully so, they're kind of impact groups. They're not in the business of buying and selling a ton. And so we'll look at year 15 stuff for that kind of thing, and maybe we can either retain affordability, maybe even, try and get deeper affordability, or extend the extended use period. So, a lot of states vary, but it's somewhere between 30 and 55 years or so for kind of the affordability restrictions to burn off. So, if it's we'll look to extend if it's kind of a year 15 buy, but we're also looking at the stuff that is further down the road. That's 28 to 30 years in, where it is, oh, we have a real problem here. So, there are value add players or market rate players that would come in and acquire, and we are really at risk of losing these units to market. And so part of our, goals of reducing tenant displacement is to come in and be kind of rescue capital in that regard.
I love the ability to combine the mission driven with with the business world itself. Do you think that there's anything that young Brian, pre-accountant, CPA, would have thought would have been really cool about this job?
That's a good question. I mean, young Brian would have been like, hey, you're going to be a professional soccer player, but I probably would not
Like
come
Chris?
down now. I think getting to see, I travel a fair amount and get to see the various communities we are investing in. And I always like that aspect of this job, is kind of meeting new people. Even in the accounting side, that was about the only thing I loved about accounting in general was, hey, we would look at people doing the same job, but how they do it differently. And so kind of getting some different perspectives on how people execute is always interesting to me.
Yeah, so I guess so somebody's let's say somebody's in college or whatever, and they're trying to figure out what they want to do with their career, and they want to learn, like, I guess, what skills, like you describe your job, like what do you kind of generally do day to day, and like what skill sets do you use, hard skill sets, soft skill sets? How could somebody develop those?
Yeah, I would say a lot of it, I mean, it kind of started, a lot of it was Excel based. I mean, learning models, how to model is important. From there, a lot of it is either accounting or finance backgrounds in general. I think, transition pretty well into the things that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, which are really kind of analyzing investment opportunities, right? I mean, it's all real estate backed investments, but at the end of the day, there are sources and uses, there are rents and expenses, and you have to understand a lot of that. And so, um, I would say, from a college perspective, there are places with real estate, trajectories, but I think accounting, finance, almost anything business will probably land you here. Likewise, there's probably some other tracks that if you are more interested in, social services or the property management side or the owner operator side as well.
And how hard do you think it would be to move from accounting? I ask only because we often talk to people who are working at big four accounting firms, and they really want to get onto the business side. Like they would love to do what you do, but I feel like it gets harder and harder each year. Do you see your firm bringing people in ever with a pure finance background without the real estate?
Yeah, I think accountants in general make great hires. Honestly, I think, especially in our business, because we also, as we asset and fund manage for 15-year compliance period in the LIHTC space, it's a little shorter on my side of the house. It tends to be somewhere between 5 and 10. But regardless, you got to understand audits, tax returns, because all of our investor partners need that. So I generally think that accountants make good hire because they can be kind of flexible as to where they participate in our organization. And we've seen that as we've hired. So I think it's kind of walking proof.
Yeah, I think I always tell folks. I spoke at this. It was like a chief financial officers roundtable one time in San Francisco. I was invited to talk about, and like essentially, like there was a chief accounting officer there who wanted to be a CFO, and he wasn't sure why he wasn't a CFO. And I didn't tell him this directly, but it was more like, if you have a personality and can communicate with folks, and the accounting part of it, like that's kind of what I consider a CFO is, right? So if you have, like you, Brian, you seem like a great personality and the technical skill sets, like there's so much you could do with it.
You're making me blush, Chris.
I know, I can
Uh,
see it. It's so cute.
I agree though. But I think, and honestly, I kind of think that even more so now with the boom of AI and kind of what you're seeing in CRE broader, um, not just our industry, but you are seeing the impacts of it, and it makes a bit of a barrier entry to those lower jobs, like the analyst type of role, right? Because now I think, a lot of organizations are saying, well, I can be much more efficient and utilize some technology to do what I would have to pay someone to do. Um, and I think there's places where that makes some sense. I don't think it's going to, overtake anything by any means. And um, certainly need to grow. I think at Redstone we focus on trying to grow internally and organically. So we have internship programs where we try and hire and grow throughout the organization. Um, but you were asking about accounting folks coming into the industry, and honestly, that may having some background in general or experience outside of this space isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, when I'm looking to hire people, I'm always looking for someone who has some sort of different perspective or background than I do, because I know what I know, but I need someone that knows what I don't know, right? So I would always push for someone that is not on the same exact track that I was.
I've said to people before, young folks, even if you sell T-shirts on the beach, you will be better at that for having an accounting background. Because I think when you understand how the finances work, it's just kind of a little key. If you could tolerate all the accounting classes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even recall how I got into accounting, to be honest with you. I think I knew I wanted to go into business of some sort, and um, I it's just kind of all right. Well, I'll choose accounting because it seems a good way to learn the ins and outs of a business.
Right.
Um,
And it is, right?
and it is that, yeah, a shot in the dark or serendipitous or whatever it may be. But I do think it's a great foundation in general if you're trying to go into any sort of business.
So how did you make the transition, like from a public accounting to were you at Redstone as an accountant, or did you come in as like a different role?
I came in as a different role. So I was in public accounting. I started in auditing. I did that for a handful of years, and then and this firm it's a national firm. They focus in affordable housing. So that's just how I kind of got my start in affordable housing. But then I, was assigned to a team, kind of a small team that built an underwriting model for syndicators and our development partner clients. And, we did that. We went and sold it and used it. And I just really enjoyed the transactional side of the business. And, when you're sitting doing an audit for the same property for the fourth year in a row, it's not nearly as exciting as looking at something new and fresh. And so I kind of knew I wanted to do something like that. And this firm wasn't quite ready to have like a full-time kind of consulting arm. And so I knew my writing was on the wall to some extent. And so I ended up I ended up finding a recruiter when I was looking.
Who'd you use, Brian? Don't tell.
I don't. They reached out to me.
Oh, son of a gun.
No, she was great, and honestly pointed me to Redstone, and I'd never been to Charlotte. I came down for the interview, loved it. I mean, loved the people that interviewed me, who are now our president and our CIO. Kind of, we just meshed really quickly. Thought I could help. I think they saw that they thought I could help too. I went back. I was married at the time, but we didn't have a house. We didn't have kids or anything. My wife's from Indianapolis, which is where we were at the time. And so we were like, really like this job. Can we move? What do you think about it? And, if we're ever going to do it, now's the time, kind of a thing. And, she goes, I'm in. I have two conditions. I don't want to be in the suburbs, and I want a dog. And I was like, sold. So off we came to Charlotte and joined Redstone just over 10 years now. And so when I joined, my focus was on the front end of deals, but I was really more reviewing all the financial projections, looking at the financial strength of guarantors, working through partnership and tax structuring issues, right? When you have federal subsidies, There's tends to be a lot of compliance and tax nuances involved. So that was kind of my focus for the first 8 or 9 years at the company.
And I think I saw that you've done some work with opportunity zones as well.
Yeah, I mean, part of my role now is really just looking at various revenue diversification efforts that we could do, right? As you can imagine, we work with a lot of different folks on the development side as well as our investor community, but there's always some sort of opportunity, whether it's programmatic or kind of a pass the hat kind of a thing. And so that all those things tended to just come to my desk. And so, opportunity zones, when they came out, were incredibly interesting. I mean, I think we thought, hey, as we look to diversify our revenue as a company, what are our strengths? It's real estate and it's tax-oriented investing. And so it's kind of, do you want to go more real estate? Do you want to go more tax-oriented investing? And at that time, we had already kind of been in renewable energy a little bit. This was kind of before even IRA came out. And so we had looked, and that fundraise is a lot different for sure, but everyone was kind of figuring it out in 2017. And everything that was getting done at like immediately were all kind of the low hanging fruit deals, right? Deals that more or less penciled already. Now they're just getting a tax incentive. And so, we looked at it. I think we just kind of decided it probably wasn't going to be a programmatic thing for us. But who's to say not in the future? I still like the program.
Has anyone
in general.
figured it out? Has anyone really figured it out?
I mean, folks have, but again, it's a little more of an inefficient fundraising because it's predicated on capital gains, and so you really have to go to folks who have recurring capital gains to get anything of scale. And as someone who we really just raised kind of institutional capital, and those segments of the banks that we work with, those are not the shops, right? So it would have been a completely different fundraising effort.
Now, you've had all these incredible accolades at work. What do you think when I say the Great Lakes Valley Conference Men's Soccer Scholar Athlete of the Year? To mind.
Oh man, you did your Google search history. Yeah. Well, I'm proud of it. Don't get me wrong. I was fortunate enough to have a full academic ride to college, so I kind of came out debt free, which was great. And so I only say that to say that I had to maintain a pretty good GPA just to keep that scholarship. It kind of just came with it. But I also subtly get reminded from time to time, people will text me, some of my roster pictures back from like 2007 where I had a faux hawk going on and stuff like that. And
yeah,
we all did stuff at times, but no, I wouldn't take any of it back.
Do you? Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I'm looking at some stuff right now. But do you? One, Lisa and I, we have some people that work with us who come out of like more college athletics, and there's it doesn't have to be athletics. It could be something, extra that they're doing. Like, do you find? I'm sure you've interviewed people. Like, do you find those folks like generally kind of more go-getter types?
I do. I mean, I don't know if I would say they're more so, but I do. Whenever I see that someone was a college or a high school athlete, or they had extracurriculars that were team involved, definitely, because it kind of tells me, one, you can work with other people well. You have a work ethic to have team goals, and you are helping coalesce towards that goal together. And so I do find that the kind of work ethic and the general they tend to be more self-starters from folks that I've personally interviewed, which is something I'm always looking for whenever we're hiring.
Yeah, I always feel like if you want something done, you give it to the busiest person. And college athletes and some other clubs and things, that when they take that level of commitment, that person has to have the discipline. So
yeah, I mean, anything in college that you are doing outside of just school, if you're also getting schoolwork done at a good rate and participating in something else, whether it's athletics or something else, I mean, that tells me a lot right there.
Yeah, you're like, my girlfriend's working full-time jobs and stuff, and
Yeah.
And also maintaining a good GPA. It's like, yeah, you got to know. Yeah, it's gotta be motivated, one, and two, you gotta be organized. So what's the growth trajectory? Because Redstone, I knew them from New York years ago. When did they come down to Charlotte, or have they always been in Charlotte?
Our headquarters, well, the original headquarter was Cleveland.
Yeah.
I think we spun off, our founder spun off of a group that was Apollo Housing back in the day, was bought by RBC. He kind of left, started Redstone, right in the midst of the great financial crisis, which is a great time to start a syndication shop. But it worked. The headquarters was Cleveland for the longest time. I think it was maybe a year ago or so. We've changed it to New York, which is where a lot of our investor relations, we have acquisitions, kind of everyone's up there. But that's our headquarters now, as we've dissolved the Cleveland office. Yeah, we've been up there for a while. It's just kind of now officially our headquarters.
Okay, yeah. Feels like a lot of these tax credit. I don't know. There's like a lot of concentration in Ohio for much of
Yeah,
what.
oddly enough. Yeah.
Maybe
And
it's a
where do
tax
you see
efficient
growth
state
in
to
this?
live in.
Sorry, go ahead, Lise.
I said maybe it's a tax efficient state to live in, so they figure it's by virtue of the people who go there, that's the business they get into. We'll have to research.
When did you like move into this more alternative investments where you're kind of doing everything that's not like the core business?
I'd say I've been doing it for probably 18 to 24 months, but kind of on the side. It's kind of been a side hustle. And then once we kind of established a bit of a more programmatic business plan, I'd say it's been about 12 months since we've really kind of done that. So my official title changed at the beginning of the year. But I think we closed our first deal in this space at the end of last year. So
Are you growing
relatively
you
new.
growing this side of the business?
Yeah, yeah, sure. That is the goal.
It's exciting. I find it's either incredible to be kind of in the core, outside of the core business, or it could be awful. So we're hoping that you build up and have a second core business within the company.
I will take all the thoughts and prayers I can get. Listen, Redstone's been great of allowing me to be, somewhat entrepreneurial, but also having a great foundation to build on. And this doesn't work if we don't already have, our credit underwriting groups and our portfolio and asset management side of the house. So it just kind of naturally made sense for
Right.
us to move into this space.
Awesome. Well, according to this article, Fishback netted 4 game-winning goals in his junior season. So it seems like you thrive under pressure. But wait until you sit down on the hot seat.
Oh boy.
Oh
Boy,
no!
I think that's pressure. Here we go.
Here we go.
Turn
We'll
on,
start
Kate.
choosing. Do you have a book or a podcast recommendation, a favorite? What's on your bedside table?
Let's see. Books. I have a few probably favorites like that I have read more than once, and I just kind of go back to because they're easier reading and they remind me of things. I have an 8-year-old son, and
Oh,
one of my favorite books, honestly, is a Dr. Seuss book called "Oh, the Places You'll Go," and it is just it's kind of, you were talking about playing golf earlier. It is like a microcosm of golf in a book because it is, things are not going to go your way. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't, but you have to persevere and get through it. And so that's one I always go back to. My wife introduced me to a book called The Last Lecture, which was it's a pretty short book, but it's a story of kind of valuable life lessons after this professor learns he has terminal cancer. And my wife was in bone marrow transplant nursing for years. And now she does kind of outpatient infusion stuff. But anyways, I remember being in public accounting and coming home, a long day. It's been a 13-hour day and I'm tired and I'm grumpy and, complaining about something. And my wife would come home from her 12-hour, 13-hour shift on a bone marrow transplant unit and put me in my place. And this book kind of reminds me of that at times. I mean, we all get caught up in what we're doing on the day-to-day basis. And so sometimes it is good to just step back and remind ourselves that there's a lot heavier and worse situations out there. And find the good and what you're doing and what you can do in the near future. So those are two I definitely find myself coming back to.
I
Um,
wonder if that had anything to do with you going into a kind of an altruistic side of the business.
maybe
The
subconsciously,
answer so many,
I don't know. And then I think I do read a lot and listen to stuff that's kind of business and real estate related. Probably listened more than read that stuff because after a day I don't want to sit and read more of it. But my son also we read with him every night, and he's into a lot of the fantasy stuff. Like we'll read, Harry Potter books, so we'll read
Oh,
a book and then we get to watch the movie. Same with the Percy Jackson or Wings of Fire or stuff like that. So those are always on our bedside tables too.
I miss having an 8-year-old.
Yeah,
My son's
it's great.
15.
It's kind of the sweet spot, honestly. Like he can make himself breakfast. He can put his laundry in and do it. You're still kind of a superhero in his eyes. I think we're probably approaching the end of that phase, but I will cherish it while it's here for sure. Um, and then from a podcast perspective, other than this one, of course, I would say, you know, road trips are the place I probably listen to the most of them, honestly. And my wife and I will listen to kind of true crime ones, the serials, Dr. Deaths, Murdoch Murder, those kind of things. Um,
Remember when Serial came out? That was like my first podcast that I was like,
that was
I didn't even know
Mine
what
too.
podcasts were.
my first exposure to it, and this is great, and it's in real time. Like I can follow along. There's a case coming out, so yeah, I've enjoyed those. From the housing perspective, I'll listen to like the rent roll, capital allocators, some stuff like that. So um, try and stay current with a lot of that stuff too.
Now I'm sure you've invested in been part of a lot of different deals. Do you have a most memorable deal?
Man, I mean, from the light tech side, of a few jump out, but I was kind of uh, involved in more of a roundabout way. So I think probably the most memorable ones would be the one starting this side of the business, honestly. Just to get us started, it was a really, it was a long road to get there, but felt really good to get it over the hump and get it closed. So that's probably the one I would choose at the moment. Maybe my
Yeah,
memory
you
is
started
short.
your own business line. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
pretty amazing. You must be an entrepreneur at heart.
I think so. You kind of have to be to go do some of this. So, like I said, that it's been it definitely has ups and downs compared to what I was doing, but also a lot more rewarding at times too. So it's great.
It's great. So the next question we typically ask is, what do you look for in hiring someone? I feel like we touched on that a little bit. So I'd love to ask you if there's anything AI, technology that like maybe somebody who's in college and they don't know what to study, or, if there's anything interesting that you've heard of, or any AI secrets that you might want to share.
I don't have them myself. I can't say I am
But
an
you're
AI
you're
expert. I know it is something we are, actively looking at how it can help in some of our, kind of manual processes. I do see a lot of stuff out there. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that will help with, creation of OMs or parsing rent rolls or T12s. A lot of that kind of stuff I see. There's a ton of options out there. And some of them are, geared specifically towards broader commercial real estate, but also multifamily and even affordable. So I kind of think that's where a lot of this is, as well as combing through public data sources for like comp data. I mean, I think that's another place where, things are a lot clearer. You can find them a lot quicker today than I could even 3 to 4 years ago. That technology is just moving so quickly.
Yeah. And now you mentioned about, being part of a team and, we know at JL, like we build teams. No one does this on their own. Like what mentors have you had throughout your career that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Well, I'd be remiss to not say my parents, right? Well, shout out to them. Hey, mom and dad. Um, definitely there. I don't know if it's necessarily one. Honestly, I've been really lucky to have really good bosses throughout my career. Honestly, the folks at the accounting firm DOZ before I came here, they were great in, kind of not necessarily, and the exec team here at Redstone. I think what I value the most in like a manager or a mentor is someone that isn't going to micromanage. They will kind of, recognize why you're hired and recognize the skill sets that that person has and let them run with it a little bit, right? I mean, you got to be on a leash to some extent, but, kind of like we talked about how you want to look for people with different backgrounds or different viewpoints when you're hiring. I think that's also what you have to give people that are kind of under you or working for you or with you. You have to give them that same grace too. And, just be there for advice. And I would say that I've been incredibly lucky, both here at Redstone and at my previous role, to just have a lot of those folks in my life.
It's really nice to hear that. Well, Brian, thanks for taking a chance and coming on the podcast with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You scored.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Resume, a Jackson Lucas podcast where we take a deep dive into the career journeys of some of the top minds in real estate and equip you with the knowledge to move forward in your path towards the success you've envisioned. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Beyond the Resume. We're grateful for your support. All episodes of Beyond the Resume are brought to you by Jackson Lucas, building inclusive and diverse businesses through talent acquisition. Visit us at jacksonlucas.com.